Hi, welcome back to Broken and Brilliant. I'm Carrie O'Toole with Carrie O'Toole Ministries, and today I'm joined by Richard Dixson. Hi, Richard.
How you doing, Carrie?
I'm good. It's so good to see you again.
Well, it's great seeing you.
Yeah, so Richard and I met at an adoption conference in Kansas City in 2022. And I just found him to be a delight and full of all kinds of information and help and resources. And so thought we'd have a conversation today and just kind of pick up where we left off at the conference and have a chat that people could listen in on. How's that sound?
That sounds great to me.
Yeah, so we met kind of just hanging around the hallways.
Yes, we did.
At the conference and had some conversations, and I discovered that you are a parent coach. And we had a couple of conversations after that, just kind of talking about what do you do, what do I do, how does this play in together? And my thinking was that maybe we could kind of just be talking to all adoptive parents and saying, hopefully between us, we'll be able to help you find some help. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. It's funny you mentioned that because, some 30 plus years ago, my wife and I were these innocent, loving, visionary people who had a heart to want to care for some children. And so
I'm just laughing because you're like 30 years ago we were.
So we adopted our first child, and two more followed after that. So we adopted three children as babies 30 plus years ago. And I think the clients I come in contact with have the same kind of idea, the same kind of heart. They have a love for children. They want to help. They have a vision. They have an idea of what they want to do, but they don't have a clue of what they're about to walk into.
Right.
There's not enough foster training that can prepare them for what they're about to receive. There's not enough home studies that will equip them for what they're about to walk into. And that's where we were, right? We just didn't know what these bundles of joy were going to unleash upon us. And back then there wasn't TBRI, which is trust-based relational intervention. There wasn't these parenting strategies based on brain science. All that's been recent in the past 5 to 10 years, right?
Right.
And so we were helpless, we were frustrated, we were overwhelmed because we just didn't know how to deal with the behaviors of our children. And we were lost, and back then.
And I love what you said about how TBRI is based on brain science. And, it kind of used to be the thought that kids were just resilient. They're a blank slate.
Right.
As long as you have love, everything will be just fine. And that's not reality.
Right. You're so true. And that's the thing that that brought me to this point. About 6 years ago, we were introduced to TBRI, and I was just so amazed at the perspective that this type of parenting involved. I love the approach. I love the effect, and my wife and I we immersed ourselves in learning and understanding and researching, and we became TBRI evangelists. We wanted every foster parent, every adoptive parent to know about this type of parenting strategies and understanding, so that they could be equipped to help their children and really help themselves as well along the way. And so that's what got me started on this journey. And today, as you mentioned earlier, I'm involved. I'm a certified trauma-informed care parent coach, and I involve myself with helping parents, adoptive parents, kinship caretakers, foster parents with their children. And it's quite an experience, because these parents, again, have that same mentality that they want to love, they want to help, but they have no idea. I have a current client that adopted 6 children.
At the same time?
At the same time. And it is just an incredible display of communication that he's having to go through.
Wow.
And one of the things you'd asked me to share about just kind of how this takes place. I met this client about a month and a half ago. And one of the things I do with my client is that I will do a family dynamics assessment.
Mm.
And what I am trying to do, I want to find out how everyone in that household interacts with one another, what their likes and dislikes are, what the triggers are. I want to get an idea so that I can better understand how to help these particular individuals as I get in there and parent coaching them. And so it's been really a very fun experience for me, because I get a chance to, as I'm looking from my perspective into their lives, I get to enjoy sharing with them the strategies, helping them to take those kinds of steps to move themselves forward in their parenting. One of the challenges that we have sometimes as we parent, coach individuals, and I'm sure you've probably have come in contact with this, is that if there's a couple and they're not aligned, that's the first step. That's the first part of the process.
Well, yeah, because kids with trauma, that's like they can sniff that out a mile away, and it's like, ooh, divide and conquer, and parents can't even see what's happening. And it's so challenging too, because I'm sure you found this when parents have their own trauma triggers from stuff maybe they didn't even realize was trauma from when they were growing up. They're just like, it was just my life. That's just how I lived. I grew up. I made it. I'm fine.
Right.
And then a child with trauma comes in and their behaviors zing right into that place that's not healed up yet. And all of a sudden the parents are getting defensive or attacking each other.
Right. Yeah, you're so true, Carrie. That a child's trauma will trigger the parents' unresolved trauma. And as I've met with this particular client, that's one of the things we've talked about. I take them through a 9-step program of how they can help them go through their own transformation, because I believe that the real key to a child's behavior transformation must take place through the parent's own behavior transformation. And so I'll walk the parent through this process of the first phase of this is being a coming up curious parent, where they really begin to discover who they are, what parenting style do they possess, because that will reveal the generational parenting patterns that they've adopted from their parents, or what they've seen, or what they've read about, however they've developed their parenting styles. And it's always interesting to see the parents really begin to, the light bulbs start going off as they begin to understand the whys behind how they have been parenting.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting because most of us were really good students. And so whatever we were taught growing up, we learned it really well. And so we just do it without thinking, and it's second nature to us. And so to have somebody like you who can come in and help you identify what it is you're doing and why you're doing it, and is that really what you want to be doing, and is it effective?
Right.
And then learn how to kind of unlearn that and relearn a different way. It's challenging.
Yeah, and the really important piece of this is that the parent has to want to change. They have to be open to it, because this is a new way of thinking for them, for most parents, to have to look at what type of parenting style they exhibit, and to understand that there's a better way. Most parents, when they come to me, they realize that they're frustrated, they want help, but yet they've not come to the conclusion of what that looks like.
Right.
And so it's really my role in helping them, and depending upon where they are, I will gently get them there to where they understand that The reason why they are frustrated is because they're using ineffective traditional parenting styles that do not work for children who have incurred trauma.
And I
And
think what you just said is gently getting them there, because if you go in with a jackhammer, beating them over the brain with this, they're already feeling beat down. These
absolutely,
parents have tried everything. Their hearts are so good. They really have the best interest of the child at heart, and they're doing everything they know to do. And they come to you at a loss. And so, you can't go in and like, what are you doing?
right. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have an alter ego. His name is Ricky the Tool Guy, and Ricky is all about creating parenting tools that work. And one of the things that's really important is understanding how to meet that parent where they are. Because as you said, they've come in, they're frustrated, they are hopeless.
They're angry.
They're angry, they're discouraged.
Yeah.
And
you've been there.
I've been there. I've been there. And I didn't have a Ricky the Tool Guy to come help me.
That's so awesome. My last name is O'Toole, and you remember that old show Home Improvement?
Yeah.
I used to have a newsletter for a different thing that I did, and I called it O'Toole Time, and it was all about giving them the right tools.
Well, I'm sorry, I stole that idea.
No, go for it, Ricky.
I'll have to send you the logo so you can tell me what you think about it.
That's awesome. I think it's great.
But I did share with this father one tool, just so he can experience some immediate success. And it's a very effective tool that's based upon attachment-based theories. And the tool is stay calm, stay close, stay connected, and stay ready. And I explained to the father each one of those steps, how to do those and why they were important. And that it was something that he can do immediately. So that was about 3 weeks ago. I shared this with him, right? And so the following week, I always have a follow-up time with him. We had a follow-up time, and he came in. He was so excited because he practiced using this technique, this tool. And his children noticed immediately a difference in him. Instead of them calling him a mean dad, they said, "You are a loving daddy now." Wow. And that lit his heart to hear his children respond to him that way, because he was trying to implement this tool of staying calm when that child has a behavior that is undesirable, to stay close, because most times in the traditional parenting style, we want to send children away, time out, and isolation only deepens trauma. And so staying close, staying connected, staying in tune with what that child is saying, their need, what they're expressing, and staying ready, being ready to respond to what that child needs. And he was just, he talks about it every time we get together now. He's just so excited about what he's learning and how he's applying it and how his children are responding. And that's really the goal that I have for each client that I meet with, because they come to me, as we said earlier, hopeless, and I want to give them hope. Right. I want them to be able to see some progress. That my goal is that they can experience a little bit of progress each week that will move them forward. That's what I love about what I do.
What do you, within that tool of staying calm, how do you help a parent who is feeling triggered themselves due to the child's behavior? The child does something and all of a sudden the parents are like, you went from nice dad, loving dad to, you're the Hulk or whatever all of a sudden.
Yeah, right. Sure.
How do you help a parent stay calm when they're starting to feel triggered themselves? Right.
There's another tool for that, but I'll just give you a quick answer to that. One of the things, and I'll answer that question in two ways. I try to teach the parents to not take the child's behavior personally. it's not about, it's not about a personal attack upon you. If you can have the mindset that that child is going through something that needs help. So what I will teach the parents is the difference between reacting versus responding.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm trying to do is teach parents how to respond versus react, because reaction is a reflection upon where the parent is coming from, where the parent is at, versus responding, which is directed towards where the child is coming from, what that child is needing. And so I'll help differentiate for the parent those two type of responses and why it's important for them to be able to respond in an appropriate way so they can meet that child's need. And when the parent understands that it's not personal, that it's something that child is needing, that they're trying to communicate, that I need to be able to meet that need by my response, then they're a lot less likely to react. And the more that they're able to practice that, the better the results will be for them.
Yeah. And, many of my clients, their children struggle with really deep trauma, and a lot of them have reactive attachment disorder or developmental mood dysregulation disorder, or, whatever, kind of the more severe kinds of behaviors. And I say so many times, it doesn't matter who this child's mom was in this situation. The intimacy of this disorder would make them want to spew like this. It has nothing to do with you in your personality and your heart. It has to do with the position in the relationship here and the threatening feeling that it is to the child, And sometimes that helps, but boy, it sure feels personal.
It does, doesn't it? It does. Yeah. And especially you're talking about severe, we're talking about when a child becomes physical, right? And I've, with my parents, and I'm coaching, there are many times where the child or the children are being physical, and where I grew up from, you don't take the last lick, right? So this was a different mind. This was a mind change for me, because if you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back, right? And but that mind shift took place because I began to understand the importance of this child, recognizing where this child's coming from. Yeah, they're coming from a position of survival. They are being threatened. What can I do to help meet that child's need? Yeah. That it's a challenge, but the more that I can get the parent to make this mind shift, the better they'll be equipped to handle their child's behavior, even when it gets physical.
Well, and I think a big, huge part of that is, helping the parent to stop and breathe for a minute before they do anything, because like you said, you want a response, not a reaction is going to be, just whatever, yelling, moving, and that's going to trigger the child even more. Right. Whereas the child's behavior may have even already triggered the parent. And so it's really difficult sometimes to be able to, when you're starting to feel it yourself.
Yes. Take a moment.
Take a moment, step away if you have to. Yes. But getting yourself into that calm place before you have any interaction. It's so important.
Well, yeah, even in my own household, I've had to help my wife because my 9-year-old can get physical. And, and so my wife hasn't gone through the training that I've gone through. And so I've had to help her understand how to respond to my 9-year-old when she gets physical. And because she's unable to process that situation, and therefore her only way to communicate, or what she's learned to communicate, is through being physical or being loud, or some other way of reacting to what she's feeling on the inside.
And that leads right back into what we talked about a minute ago, when you have parents who aren't in the same place on how to parent, because we all come from different places, and one person may have come from a family that never raises a voice, and one comes
Right.
from a family where you fight it out and then you're all okay, or whatever it is.
Right.
And you put these two people together, and now you're trying to parent a child with a trauma history where they might be lashing out and whatever. And so you can see where it could really get a marriage in trouble here and there. And so the fact that you're able to help your wife through that, you have to stay totally calm, because if you went in there and started getting too aggressive or assertive with your wife, she's not going to be appreciative of that. But if you can go in with a real gentle heart and really help her and step in, and I know how hard this is, honey, here, let me take it for a second so you can kind of calm or whatever it is.
Sure.
So you can't go in and just with blazing,
No. You're absolutely right. This situation, one of the parents I'm with, they're not together right now because of the challenge they faced in this parenting. Fortunately for the parent and for myself is that I got 20 years of marriage counseling experience. And so I've been able to help coach this father, not only just with his children, but with his spouse as well.
That's so good. Yeah. Because it's all interrelated. And
it's all interrelated.
Yeah. Sometimes you go to somebody who gets the TBRI thing, but they don't understand what to do with it. They're constantly saying like, well, you got to connect before you correct, and you got to be calm. And it's like,
you got to go, before you can empower it.
But how? When when my spouse is this or whatever, So to have you that gets the full picture, of all the dynamics is really helpful, I think.
Well, and that's one of the major challenges that we've had to deal with is just helping them to take the first steps of getting on a schedule together. You can imagine.
Oh,
the wife,
I didn't even have to try.
The wife is at home with the 6. Her spouse is living in another house because he can't stay there. So she's frazzled, right? And so I just talking to him about, okay, let's just take it step by step here. Let's find a way that we can get on a schedule together so that you can begin to identify how you can come in and help. Well, guess what? She was not able to even get to that point. I said, well, let's just back it up a little bit further. We're just going to take it one step at a time. Okay, since she's not ready for that yet, let's talk about what ways can you interject and find out what's happening in the schedule of the household. And those are the kinds of things that you have to do, as I mentioned earlier, being gentle, being able to take them where they are and help them get to where they need to be.
And I love your patience. It's so important because you're dealing with people in crisis.
Yes.
You're dealing with people that, people in crisis don't always have the full use. They could be the most intelligent people, the most emotionally intelligent people in the world, and throw some trauma in there, and all of a sudden they can't even think.
Can't think.
And so to have you be able to come in and just speak slowly and calmly and gently and tenderly, and yet with conviction and giving really good ideas. And okay, we tried that doesn't work. Let's back it up a little bit. So it's just like, oh, well, gosh, I don't know what to do if you tried that and it didn't work. You have to be there with those solutions time after time, even when they try and it doesn't work, or they try and it's not the right time or whatever. So
absolutely,
you've got to, I have some coaches that work with me, and we talk sometimes about for our clients, because they're in such trauma when they come to us, many times we have to kind of act as their frontal lobe, meaning that their brains are so offline because they're just in PTSD all the time.
Yes.
And they can't even think. And so we have to be able to give the ideas and walk them through, like, take a breath. Okay, now let's just sit here for a second and let your heart rate come down.
Right.
And then you give them the next idea, and then they can take it from there.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. And what I find to be very, very, I think enlightening and very encouraging for me is when I can get them to take those little baby steps and they see the results. That builds a foundation of confidence for them to take the next step.
Yeah.
Because 3 weeks later, he came to me and said his wife is now ready to talk about the schedule. She's ready now. And he was excited about that. You know, she's actually talking about him coming back home again because she's seeing a different person, right? And so these are the things that, for me, that keeps me moving forward and keeps me pushing, because I know that if they take this step and they see the success and they see the outcome, they will be encouraged to take the next step.
Right.
I try to keep building upon that because I know down the road, there are more difficult challenges ahead. We haven't even begun to get to the children yet. And these children have severe trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind that I haven't had to deal with in
you
quite
think
some
about
time.
that when you've got a sibling group and, you know, they are all needing a new home. What had to have happened to make that even, you know, we talk about adoption so many times, and it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
And it is.
Right.
And it would never happen if there wasn't a trauma.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
many times it's numerous and it's complicated trauma and it's all kinds of things. And the general public doesn't really have any awareness of this. And many adoptive parents don't, even going through the training that we get. You know, I did a domestic adoption. We did an international adoption, had all the hours. We did have all the training.
Sure.
And you come out of there thinking that, you know, I mean, not in an arrogant way, but it's like, okay, I understood that. I get.
I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
I'm at least as ready as they think I need to be. And then you get into it and it's like, oh my word, we didn't hear anything about this.
Right. You know, one other thing too is that a lot of times in the initial part of the time with the parent, as I'm trying to get a picture of their dynamics, what will surface at times is a bitterness because one spouse was the driving force behind adopting these 6 kids. The other one was not, right? We're talking about 6 kids that range in, you know, from 2 to 9, you know, you're just thinking, oh my goodness.
And they're all young too.
They're all young. And so that's, you know, that's important is if surfacing any kind of hidden, you know, hurts or pains between the spouse,
blame,
right?
Betrayal,
Yes,
bitterness,
absolutely.
resentment, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and that sneaks in even to the best hearts. It sneaks in and you don't even realize it's there. And all of a sudden you're just so angry at your spouse.
Right.
And it's really difficult to parent when you can't work through that. And also the challenge is that's a tough thing to have to work through anyway.
Right.
But
absolutely.
Now you're having to work through it while you're trying to parent all of these traumatized kids.
Right. You know, one of the things I've been asked about, I'm involved in several groups here locally here in Kansas City. And I just recently was approved to implement a 6-week parenting program this summer at one of the first early childhood development schools here in Kansas City. I'm excited about. But one of the things I get asked about is the difference between men and women. And I've been researching this for the past few years, and I'm working on a similar program just as designed for men. And one of the questions I was in a panel discussion about a month ago, and this question came to me, and there's, you know, what have you learned? That was the question was presented to me. And I said to them, well, listen, I have not come to a conclusion yet. I'm still in an observation mode as I work with dads. One of the things I have come to conclude is that men do respond differently because men and women have different needs. A man's primary need is to feel respected. So when a child disrespects him or is disobedient or has an undesirable behavior or is obstinate, towards him, the father oftentimes will feel disrespected and therefore will react because of feeling disrespect.
Mhm.
And so what I've been able to do as I'm working with different dads is to help them to understand, again, that behavior is not to be taken in a way that is as an attack towards your manhood, or that they're disrespecting you.
Your position as
Again, your
father,
position, yeah, exactly. And most times also I am addressing the parent over style that they've had, which feels threatened by that child's behavior too, right? And so those are the things that I am trying to break down with the father when I'm dealing with dads, that I'm trying to help them understand, so that again they understand how to respond instead of reacting.
That's
And
good.
it's been very, very, very just enlightening understanding that and seeing it happen. So either they come ready with the attitude that they want to learn, or they come with a very resentful, bitter heart. And that's a whole nother challenge that I'm trying to deal with.
Yeah, because they're wanting you to help with the parenting right away.
Right.
And you recognize that that's going on. And it's like, okay, we got to unwind this little piece over here first.
Right.
Or at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you can't like not parent while you're
right.
You can't like go away for 3 weeks and work this out and then come back. You have to do it in reality, in time, in real time.
And so my biggest selling point is that these parents, they want to see results. They want their child's behavior to be modified, quote, so to speak, right? My biggest selling point is that the way you do that, if you really want your child's behavior to be modified, you are the key. Your behavior being modified is the key that's going to unlock your child's behavior. Mm-hmm. And I really try to sell them on that, because that's true, but it also gives them the understanding that the power is in their court, that they have the ability, they have the opportunity to have real impact on their child, which is why they really started this whole process, right? And so they have that. They just have not understood their role, the importance of it, and how to do it. Mm-hmm. And that's when I say, that's why I'm here. I'm going to help you see how
you need a
you
coach
can do it.
To learn how to do it.
You
and
need
to
a
help
coach.
You take the steps. Yeah.
Take these steps.
Yeah. And, when we were talking at the conference and then even after, we were just kind of comparing what you do and what I do. And what I love about putting us together here is that we kind of can get anybody from a foster parent who has taken in their first child, or an adoptive parent who has just brought a child home, or they're in a couple of years and they're starting to feel over their head and they don't know what to do, and marriages struggle, all of those kinds of things. And then there's the other extreme. And this is the extreme where I tend to hang out, is where parents either didn't know about TBRI, or they have tried it, or they've tried every other parenting technique and philosophy out there. And for whatever reason, whether their own trauma is so severe and they're just triggered all the time, and they've been in it for several years, and their child's trauma and their trauma it feeds off of each other. And you've got tornadoes in the home just all the time. And it gets to a point where even if they knew what to do, their bodies are so on high alert all the time. They're living in fight or flight along with the kids 24/7. And they've just, reluctantly, tearfully, painfully come to the realization that we, as a family, we're not going to make it.
Right.
We can't do this. And it's really difficult to heal all of that in the same home at the same time.
Boy, you're so true. I was at a home last week, a week ago today, and this client had been taking care of her grandchildren. Her daughter had pretty much abused her, and she couldn't do it anymore. And shut down. She stopped living 2 years ago.
Mm.
I walked into a home that hadn't been touched in 2 years with 5 dogs. I'm not going to describe to you what this situation was like, but this lady had given up. The trauma was so severe. And what I did for her, she wasn't even going to meet with her, but a friend of hers came with her and convinced her to keep the appointment. And what I did for her was to give her hope that help was on the way.
Yeah.
It was, I won't lie to you here. After that meeting, I had to come home to debrief. It was it was that emotionally exhausting.
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, it permeated everything about me. And I just had to come home to debrief. It was just that overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
And so, so these situations could be so severe. But my goal is to give that client, to give them hope, wherever they're at.
I think that's exactly what our team tries to do too. The people are in a different situation. Many times they're needing to look at placing a child in a treatment program or a boarding school program or even in another family. And we want to let them know, because we've been down that road, that even if this is where your parenting goes, even if this is where your family goes, first of all, God can still heal. And second of all, there's hope.
Right.
And we're there because we're just a few steps ahead of you. You know, we've been there for a while. We know the pitfalls.
I don't know about a few steps ahead. Sometimes you might maybe a half step ahead sometimes.
Exactly. But sometimes it's just so good to know somebody knows what you're talking about, because our clients, they just feel crazy. They feel like they're alone. They're the only ones they know going through this. And I'm sure it's the same with you. So we're dealing with very similar things, just kind of on different parts of the spectrum.
Sure.
That's what I just wanted people to know, is that there's help wherever you're at.
Yes, and there's a need for each of us, and what we're doing to help people where they are, and that's important to know and to understand, and that's why I respect what you do, and how you're helping parents with where they are and who might be at the end of the rope, but that doesn't mean that they have to be at the end of the rope. You know what I'm saying? There's still a hand there reaching out for you. There's still a hand, and they don't have to let.
And your family may not end up looking like what you hoped it was going to look like. Well, that goes for any of our clients.
Sure.
It doesn't, and that's mainly what we help with in our group, is that we help parents deal with their own grief and trauma from parenting traumatized children, because it's traumatic to parent someone who's traumatized, as you know. And there's a lot of loss that we experience. And so we work families through, how do you deal with the aftermath of all of this? When it settles down, or even if it's still going on, how do you deal with your own trauma and your own grief so that your heart is available again? Right. Whether you continue parenting or not.
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because that's actually a question I wanted to ask you. I have a new client who came to me. She lost her spouse 4 years ago, and her son is exhibiting behavior that she cannot deal with. And I was thinking about you a couple of weeks ago because of this situation, and how you might walk someone through. Last Friday was the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary, and she couldn't meet because she didn't think she could just handle that day. And I imagine you have situations like that.
And whether it's the death of a spouse, or the death of a dream, or the death of your marriage or your relationships, or your position in society, or whatever it is, just who you thought you were, and it's all loss. And the more complex it is and the more traumatic it is, the harder it gets, but basically it's all the same.
Yes.
It truly is all the same. We respond a little bit differently, but we all need to kind of work through certain types of things like what you were talking about before, the bitterness and the resentment and the feelings of betrayal, and there's fear, there's anger, there's guilt, there's shame, there's forgiveness issues, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And that's what my team, that's what we do. And, you know, I'm just thinking about your client, and the first thing that I would want her to know is that I'm aware that there's such a thing as a trauma-versary, a trauma anniversary, and the death of a spouse is absolutely going to trigger stuff, as well as holidays, as well as a birthday,
Yes.
any of those kinds of things. You're going to feel whatever you feel more intensely
Right.
at those times. So that's absolutely normal.
Right.
Of course, you would need to cancel on that day. Let's get to it next week.
Yeah.
And then just helping her understand that there's always like two things going on when you're talking to this client. There's what to do about her and her child.
Right.
That's one piece.
Sure.
But how are you doing?
Right.
As we go through this, that's the other piece.
Right.
And you might be more gifted in the first one, and I might be more gifted in the second one, you know.
Right.
But they both go together. And
Right.
you know, helping people understand and just kind of we would call it in the counseling world like normalizing what she's feeling, that of course you would be feeling that.
Right.
And here's why. And other people who have been through something similar, it doesn't have to be exact, but something similar, you know, and the fact that your child's acting up, you know, that's their grief and trauma playing out. And so sometimes, depending on the age and the willingness and all of that, if you can get the child involved there too, on their level, that's one thing our coaches do, is we offer sibling groups, and they're groups for kids who have a sibling either in the home or out of the home, and we differentiate between the two because they trigger each other.
Right.
So we need to have them in separate groups, but we'll have a coach meeting with kids in different age groups, either, like I said, so maybe their sibling has had to be removed from the home.
Okay.
And they're then struggling because a lot of these kids feel guilty or they feel relief, but then that makes them feel kind of like, yikes, what's wrong with me? Or they're just so hurt and angry and traumatized and they want to lash out. We put them in with other kids with a coach. Right. And that's great. Guide them through some specific topics and give them some homework to do. And we teach them how to have a really good conversation with your parent, and how to have good boundaries, and how to stay safe yourself. Right. And your voice does matter, because a lot of, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, is what they say. And so the child with more trauma in the home usually is the one lashing out. And these kids fall to the background sometimes, and their needs don't get met. And so we teach them how to speak up and find their voice again and figure out who they are and all of that. So yeah, that's really great, Carrie. That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think that's super, super insightful. And I did provide her I gave her, I put together a little, just some tips for her so that day could be a good day for her. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to talking to her tomorrow to see how things went. That's so good. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. Well, you know, I just so appreciate you, Richard, in being willing to come on here with me. My goal again is to let people know that there's hope wherever they're at. Right. Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. And so how can people get a hold of you? Well, that's a great question. So you can go to either to my website. I'm all on social media. That's drama-freeparenting.com. It's my website, drama-freeparenting.com. And that's probably the easiest way to contact me that way, or either you can contact me through my email as well, which is hello@drama-freeparenting.com. Right. And so those are probably the easiest ways. Yes. That's me and my big smile, got my red on, right? There's Ricky. That's Ricky. That's Ricky. Ricky's going to be having his own podcast coming out later this spring. So, awesome. So I'll look forward to sharing it with you as well. And there are a few other things that are going to be happening. I know that, so you're in Colorado. Correct. Colorado, right? So one of your
organizations there, Focus on the Family. I did an interview with them. They're
Okay.
they're publishing an article later this spring as well, that interview I did with them about a month ago. So I'm going to be a little bit everywhere.
Yeah, you're getting out there. Okay, that's awesome.
So it's been good. So I really
Well,
appreciate you
fantastic.
thinking about me and having me on board here with you.
You bet. And
And
I was just thinking, on the bottom of the podcast or in the description, I'll put your link as well, so people can find you there.
sure. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, hey, take care. And I'm just so thankful that you're offering hope,
Yes.
because that
Yes.
is the biggest thing. When we don't have hope,
Wow.
it looks
Wow.
really, really bleak. And
It does.
when you
It
finally
does.
start realizing there's somebody who gets it and has walked this road and has got some education and some training, and they can offer that to me,
Yes.
it's a lifeline. So
Right,
thanks for
right.
offering that to all the people that you do.
Well, thank you as well for what you do and what you offer to people. And, it's hope. And regardless of where that person is at, they need it,
That's right.
And
That's
that's
right.
the important thing to understand as well.
Well, let's both keep doing what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
All right. You have
Okay,
a great
bye-bye.
day. Bye-bye.